lead the way?
Oh, go ahead, please. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Oh my goodness, thank you.
Film it through here.
Good evening, bonsoir, masa al-khair, as they say in Arabic. We're delighted to have with us tonight Her Excellency Jehan Sadat. She will be introduced formally a little later on. We have a brief statement to make, a number of representatives who are here. I will ask the rector to welcome Madame Sadat, and we will then have her formally introduced by the president of the Political Science Student Association, the Undergraduate Student Association. I would like to say just a few words before we begin the session. I'd like to say that indeed, it is a great privilege for us in the Department of Political Science and for Concordia University to invite a person of the distinction of Madame Jehan Sadat. We are indeed very privileged to do that. Before we begin, I think I should tell you how the events that led to her invitation to the university, just briefly. And I consider that we have all come in good spirit and that we are friends of Madame Sadat, and that you would like to hear a few words about how we got her to come here and the support we received for her coming to this university. Very briefly, a year ago, the Consul General of Egypt, I'm going to introduce you to, Dr. Mohamed Ismail, was hosting Madame Sadat in Montreal. And he was kind enough to invite me last April, a year ago. April, as particularly our students know, is a busy time, and I declined, and I said, you know, we have so many things on that day, maybe I shouldn't come. The Consul General said, no, I will not accept a no, you have to come. So I had no choice, and I went. But to my great delight, of course, and I've not regretted that particular moment, I was struck at this point by the personality of Madame Sadat. She showed a lot of grace, she showed warmth, and above all, she is a beautiful woman. And so I was struck by all of these things. I know this is not politically correct to say something like that, but I felt that, political correctness is not always the greatest thing. So I decided to make this statement. It is with sincere appreciation that I mention this particular incident. We, of course, then had support from the community. The president of the Egyptian community of Canada gave us a very important support, and he's supposed to be here. He will be on his way. He's coming. In the Middle East, of course, we're never on time, so that's on his behalf. Mr. George Saad here of the Egyptian television of Montreal would represent, maybe you should come and sit up there to represent him. And we'll get you a chair. There is one here. So the president of the Egyptian community of Canada really made a very important contribution, and we're very grateful for his contribution. We also received tremendous help from a leading businessman, an Egyptian businessman by the name of Dr. Marwan, who was here all day today, but something went wrong with his back, and his wife is with us today, Mrs. Marwan. And Mrs. Marwan is, I may tell you this, the daughter of President Gamal Abdel Nasser. So we have the daughter of a former president with us, and we have the wife of a president of Egypt with us. So we have two very important persons with us today, and we're very happy to. Mr. Marwan has shown a lot of interest in Concordia, and we hope and we regret that he's not with us this evening. He was here during the day. And then we had the help also of a gentleman by the name of Mr. Thomas Hecht, who heads an institute called the Jehan Sadat Institute, which he had founded. And he too regrets not to be here tonight, but he did meet Mrs. Sadat earlier. So these three people made major contributions to make this event possible for us. So it all started in the home of the Consul General of Egypt, but then we were moving to arrange all of this together. We also would like to thank publicly the chairman of the Board of Governors, Mr. Groom, who had made the arrangements for her hotel accommodations. We were very grateful for that. And we also want to thank the president of Air Canada, Mr. Claude Taylor, who made the arrangements with the airways and to give Madame Sadat the proper arrangements in Washington. So all of these people made very important contributions to make the event happen, and here we are with Mrs. Sadat being present with us today. we're really grateful to all of the people who have made that possible. I, of course, would like also to welcome the members of the Consular Corps. There are a number of consuls from different countries present here at the moment. I may miss some. There's the Consul General of Germany, the Consul General of Mexico, the Consul General of Tunisia that are here. We're very happy to have them. The Ambassador of Egypt from Ottawa was supposed to be here, but business has kept him in Ottawa. And the Ambassador of Jordan also regrets not being here. He was also supposed to be here tonight, but these two ambassadors are absent. I don't want to talk more. I would like just to introduce to you the members on the platform here, from left to right. On my extreme left is the president of the Political Science Association, Mr. Morley. He had just been re-elected for a second term yesterday, so next to him is our rector, Dr. LeRoux, who has just flown in from Toronto. He was on university business in Toronto, and they had a snowstorm, I understand, in Toronto. And he called from Toronto saying, you know, they were de-icing the plane. He hoped to be here on time, and he is. So we were very happy to have him with us. Madame Sadat, we will introduce her formally. Next to Madame Sadat is Dr. Mohamed Ismail, the Consul General of Egypt. And next to the Consul General of Egypt is Professor Maria Peluzzo, who is going to formally thank Madame Sadat at the end of the session. She is also president of our part-time faculty association, the union of the faculty association. And last but not least, the representative of Mr. Mohamed Ismail, who is the president of the Egyptian community of Canada, Mr. George Saad, who is well known to many Montrealers, particularly in the Egyptian community, because he's in charge of the Egyptian television of Montreal. So you may see him on TV a number of times. Before I ask the rector to welcome Madame Sadat formally, I would like once again to thank Monsieur Jean Picard, who is sitting here in the front row. Monsieur Jean Picard is a benefactor of the political science department. He has always helped our students with scholarships. He has sponsored a number of lectures, and some of you may remember the last lecture he did sponsor was a lecture when Prime Minister Heath came to this same auditorium. So we'd like to publicly thank him for his support of the department. So all of these events and happenings and people are strongly committed to this university and strongly committed to this community. We're delighted to see many members of the Egyptian community who have come to hear Madame Sadat, the First Lady of Egypt between 1970 and 1981. Mrs. Sadat is indeed a First Lady, and we're privileged to have, this is the first time, it's a historic event at Concordia where we receive a First Lady, and Madame Sadat is the First Lady that we ever received. I would like now to ask Dr. LeRoux to welcome Madame Sadat formally.
Madame Sadat, Consul General, Consuls, ladies and gentlemen. À titre de lecteur de l'Université Concordia, il me fait plaisir de vous souhaiter la bienvenue à tous et surtout à notre invité d'honneur. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think that I need to be very lengthy because Dr. Habib has told us how Madame Sadat came. We're about to hear something about Madame Sadat, and then of course we came to hear Madame Sadat. Let me just say how privileged we are here at Concordia to have in our presence someone who in so many ways is a model for what all of us aspire to. Someone who embodies the values of peace, of human rights, of the rights of all persons, all genders. She is the person who in so many ways has made it happen. So many individuals throughout the world aspire to these values. So few people throughout the world have had the personal attributes and the opportunity to do something about it.
She has all of these. She has done something about it. And I think we're all here because we know that she has made the world a better place because of what she has done. We here at Concordia are privileged to have her with us. And on behalf of this university and the entire Concordia community, I welcome you, Madame Sadat, with great pleasure.
Mr. Morley, President of the Political Science Undergraduate Association.
As President of the Political Science Students Association, I would like to wish everyone attending a warm welcome. On behalf of the PSSA and all of the students of Concordia University, it is a great pleasure and honor for me to present to you tonight Her Excellency, Madame Sadat. Jehan Sadat has become an activist and a contributing participant in international women's conferences and a catalyst for women movements in the Middle East and the Third World. Mrs. Sadat began her social activities several years before her husband, Anwar Sadat, became president of Egypt. She started a women's emancipation movement in Tala, which was Anwar Sadat's village town. From the beginning, this movement was aimed at helping women become more self-sufficient and less dependent on their husbands. A long-time activist in social work, Mrs. Sadat was among the first to reach the Suez Front in 1967 to visit and comfort the wounded. She was devoted a great deal of her time to establishing the Al-Wafa wal-Amal, the Faith and Hope Society in Egypt. This society built the largest hospital in the Middle East for the treatment of war wounded and the largest rehabilitation center for the treatment of handicapped veterans and children. Al-Wafa wal-Amal is a fully integrated city for handicapped war veterans and civilians, complete with clinics, rehabilitation centers, vocational training departments, and recreation areas. It was designed to accommodate 2,000 patients. The Wafa wa Amal city, founded by Mrs. Sadat in 1972, depends totally on donations from all over the world. In 1977, Mrs. Sadat initiated the idea of SOS Children's Villages in Egypt. The SOS Children's Villages International are designed to offer needy orphans the opportunity to lead a normal family life with a happy and healthy atmosphere. Among her major concerns have been more concentrated efforts for implementing programs for family planning and for eradicating illiteracy. It is her firm belief that the most precious capital in any country is an educated citizen. She was instrumental in pushing through the Egyptian parliament, the first ever, family laws and amendments to existing laws which gave women some equality in family affairs. These family laws give the wife automatic custody of children in case of divorce, boys until the age of 13, and girls until they marry. Most importantly, in addition to alimony and child support, the divorced wife was to be automatically awarded the family dwelling. In 1975, Mrs. Sadat headed the Egyptian delegation to the International Women's Conference in Mexico City. She also represented Egypt in Copenhagen, Denmark, and in New York at the United Nations. She was elected chairperson of her village council for 5 consecutive years and founded the African Women's League. Among the many organizations and charitable associations that Mrs. Sadat has either founded or headed are the Egyptian Red Crescent Society, the Egyptian Blood Bank Society, the Egyptian Society for Cancer Patients, the Egyptian Society for Biomedical Engineering, the Scientific Association for Egyptian Women, the Higher Committee for Children, the Egyptian Society for the Welfare of University and Higher Institute Students, the Egyptian Society for the Preservation of Antiquities, and the Society for Saving the Ecology. At the age of 40, she entered Cairo University and obtained her Bachelor's of Arts degree in Arabic literature. Mrs. Sadat graduated at the top of her class. The same year she graduated, she was appointed lecturer in Arabic lecture at Cairo University, where she taught and lectured for a number of years. Mrs. Sadat went on to earn both her Master's of Arts degree in 1980 and her PhD in October 1986 from Cairo University. She is a recipient of honorary doctorates and 18 of American universities. An example of some of these universities are Wheaton College of Law in Norton, Massachusetts, the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters in the American University, Washington, D.C., and the list goes on. So without any further ado, I would just like to thank and welcome Madame Sadat once again to Concordia University.
Thank you very much for this lovely introduction. You didn't leave anything for me to talk about. And I wanted to thank Dr. Habib for inviting me to be here with you. He arranged everything perfectly, even including the weather itself. The weather is a little bit cold even though for me, but I felt the warmth of the people here, and I can't tell you this time I love the Canadian people, and I have been here several times, but this time I get to understand them and I get closer to the Canadian, and especially I was very happy and proud of what I heard about Concordia University, how they all, like a teamwork, working together, talking about each one, and especially about Dr. Habib. And by the way, your compliment about myself in my age, such a wonderful thing for me, which I needed it. I am a mother of 4 children, 3 girls and 1 son. All of them are graduated from the university. They studied English literature, and they make jokes about my English. But I always tell them, as long as my mission reaches the people, this is what I want. My son is an engineer, and I have 10 grandchildren, 8 granddaughters and 2 grandsons. The majority is always for women in my family. Always. I remember when one of my daughters was having a baby, and I told the doctor, please, this time I wanted a boy. And he said, okay, Mrs. Sadat, this is very easy. He went inside, stayed about 2-3 hours, came out with a lovely girl in his arms saying, well, I couldn't make it, Mrs. Sadat. I know you are for women all your life. How can I bring you a boy? So many people, they think that I am living in the United States, and they ask me, when did you come, or do you go back home? Well, I wanted to say that I never left my country. I just, in 1985, in January exactly, I had an offer from the University of South Carolina in Columbia to go and teach there. And this offer came at a time when I needed so much a change and a challenge to go out, to change the atmosphere, especially after I lost my husband. And it was a very hard time. I went back to the university, Cairo University, where I was teaching, but even though the whole atmosphere around me was so, sad and gloomy, and remind me with my husband all the time that when I had this offer, I felt very happy. Although it was such a great change for me to go to the United States, to live on my own, to teach there in English, and not my field, which is Arabic literature, which I thought that I'm going to teach this subject there. Then I found myself teaching a course about the status of women in the Middle East and mainly in Egypt, which I think I know about it, and I spent so many years of my life dealing with women in my country. And really I was very happy to teach in South Carolina, in Columbia, and in Radford University in Virginia, and the American University in Washington, and now I am settled with the University of Maryland. I am also not only teaching there, but I am on the chair. They are establishing a chair named after my husband for population, development, and peace, and it will start functioning, I hope, next October or November, when the endowment will be finished, and it is almost. And I'm also on the board of visitors in the University of Maryland. And I'm very proud and happy that an American university is honoring my husband and continuing his work for peace. I wanted to say that whatever I have done in Egypt from activities, I couldn't have done anything without the many, many women who helped me, volunteers, and with the support of my husband. The husband, when he supports his wife, it makes such a big, big difference. And we were two partners living together, trying to help each other. I never interfered in his work, and he also never interfered in mine. I was a social activist and working with children, with women, with the disabled, and charities. And by this way, which I started it before my husband became a president, long before he became a president. And that was something which I felt that I needed to do as an Egyptian woman who wanted to help in building her society. Today I will talk about the pioneers whom I am very proud of and whom they paved the way for me and for others to follow them. Because so many people, they think that I am the one who is behind the Egyptian movement for women, but I am just trying to learn from these pioneers whom I respect, and I will give you just not an idea, because if I will talk about them, I will take hours and hours, but I made it very short about each of them. Before I begin speaking to you today about the women of Egypt, pioneers and pathfinders, I'd like to tell you something of my own life so that you can better understand the influences that have formed my opinions and positions on the rights of women. During the time when I was growing up on Rhode Island, Egypt was highly influenced by the ways of Europe. My mother was English, but our family was Egyptian. My mother was Christian, but our family was Muslim. My father, who was a Muslim student, Egyptian Muslim student, traveled to England to study there. And that's where he met my mother, and that's where it was a love story. He brought her back to Egypt. And since she came to Egypt, and since I was a child, small child, she never ever forgot her country or her roots. She was always talking about the heroes during the World War I and II. She was talking about how many women sacrificed during the wars, and really with her love to England, she taught me and she instilled in me undying love to my country, Egypt. From my parents, I learned independence, self-reliance, equality, and fairness. While I was growing up, Egypt was burning with the flames of national pride, a powerful desire for Egypt to be free of foreign occupiers. For almost a century, we had, in effect, been a British colony. While World War I and II raged in Europe, Egypt, with the Suez Canal, was a strategic gem caught between the grasps of the Allies and Axis powers. Our struggle for freedom continued after both of these wars had ended. Perhaps these flames of patriotism were a part of my falling in love with one of our national heroes when I was a young girl. Long before I met Anwar Sadat, I had heard stories and read about the resistance against the British. Although I am a daughter of a British woman and I loved my mother so much, but I didn't want any occupation for my country, either British or whatever their nationality. I want my country to be free. My head was full of these patriots who longed to return Egypt to the Egyptians. And when I married Anwar Sadat, I knew I had married a man with whom I could share my love for my country and her people. We both carried within our hearts the stories of the pioneer men and women who had paved the way. And today, I will share some of their stories with you. But there is something else I wish to tell you first. I want to make perfectly clear my current position. I have been described as a feminist, a social activist, a defender of women's rights, a voice for a downtrodden, a crusader against illiteracy, and a woman with a mission. I confess I am all of these and more. I am a mother, a grandmother, and an independent working woman. I am also a woman of Egypt, a woman of the Middle East, and a Muslim who firmly believes in Islam and the rights of women. Let me further add that I see no conflict between these two beliefs. The conflict has existed not because God is confused, but because those who interpret the word of God are confused. The Muslim holy book, the Quran, clearly sets forth the equity between men and women. Only taqwa, piety, can distinguish between us, not gender. As I have traveled throughout Canada and the United States and Europe, I am continually amazed at how many educated people think of Muslim women as being constrained and restrained by Islam. This, of course, is a misconception, fostered and perpetuated by the myopic view of those who choose to accept this as truth. Muslim women are not hindered by Islam, but by patriarchal attitudes, traditions, and practices, whether in Arab or Western societies. Actually, I believe this to be true of all societies that prohibit the liberation of women. Now that I have shared this with you, I will talk with you about the women's movement in Egypt from an historical perspective as well as a personal one. Let me first begin by establishing some points of reference about the status of women in the world. Consider these facts. Women comprise slightly more than 50% of the population, of the world's population. Of the 960 million illiterate people in the world, more than 70% are women. Women account for more than 2/3 of the more than 1 billion people living in poverty. Women perform 2/3 of the world's work, but earn just 1/10 of the money. 60% of women in the world live in health-threatening conditions, and only 24 women have been elected to lead their governments in the past 95 years. In the International Conference on Women in Mexico City in 1975, I said, "No country is alone in the world, and Egypt is deeply aware of this truth. Egypt has always been on the forefront of countries which have acceded to international conventions on the promotion of women's rights. The principal motive for this hastens the belief in the fact that women's liberation and advancement are interrelated with the progress of society itself." And since my address at that first conference in Mexico City, 3 more international conferences for women have been held, one in Copenhagen, another in Nairobi, and most recent in Beijing. I still remember the enthusiasm and optimism of the thousands of women who had come together from all over the world and from all walks of life to discuss and debate the future of women. In these conferences, we meet as delegates representing our countries from all over the world. We get to know each other, we get to meet, to understand each other, to learn from each other, and when we go back home, we try to implement this experience, which we heard it from other delegations, to implement it in our country. And this is, in my opinion, such a very good experience. Since that beginning in 1975, hundreds of thousands of delegates, both men and women, have gathered to continue the debates and discussions. With each meeting, they have worked to establish the strategies to protect and ensure the rights of women and to secure their rightful places in society without sacrificing their unique cultures and heritages. Because we in Egypt, we respect very much our culture, our heritage, and our traditions. Each of these conferences has made valuable and progressive contributions toward these noble goals. However, it is for other conferences that have truly marked the emergence of the influence of women into the arena of worldwide policy making. These are the conferences on environment and development in Rio de Janeiro, population and development in Cairo, Egypt, social development in Copenhagen, and human rights in Vienna. From them, the mission statement set forth in Nairobi's forward-looking strategies has become a reality. At Nairobi, the mission was drafted and accepted. The mission was to hasten the removal of remaining obstacles to women's full and equal participation in all spheres of life, to protect women's human rights, and to integrate women's concerns into all areas of sustainable development. 10 years later, it was these 4 international conferences that have made the issue of women's empowerment a critical mass. There will be no turning back. Women are no longer simply subjects of concern and the topic of the agenda. No, we are now participating in setting the agenda. No longer are we to be adjuncts to the process of making policies. Instead, we are vital players in the process of developing policies to sustain economic development, to protect the environment, to control the population, to safeguard human rights, and to promote peace. The words I spoke in 1975 are not empty promises nor hollow platitudes. They are undeniable truth. I knew they were true because we Egyptians have a long history of understanding the strength of our people. I also knew this because of our rich heritage, a heritage that has created strong men and women who have struggled to establish the equal treatment of women in our country. These men and women were the pioneers who stepped forward into the waves of adversity and criticism to declare not simply with their words, but more important, with their heroic actions, that women must be equal participants in all aspects of society in order for our society to progress. You share this same heritage. From 1882 to 1952, 70 years exactly, Egypt was occupied by Great Britain. As citizens of just another British colony, we were deprived of the right to govern ourselves. But this prolonged occupation sparked the fires of nationalism. By the end of World War I, the nationalists were prepared to revolt, and they needed the help of all Egyptians to attain our freedom. The nationalist movement, in turn, gave birth to the feminist movement that for years had been secluded in the writings of the women of the middle and upper classes. The writing of Egyptian women and those of immigrants to Egypt, such as Zainab Fawaz, a Lebanese, and Hind Nofel, a Syrian, laid a solid foundation for the feminist movement of the early 20th century. The social norms of the 19th century had deafened the public to the words of liberation for women. Thus, the call that was heard by the people was sounded in the late 80s in the writings of a man. In 1899 and 19, respectively, Qasim Amin, a Muslim judge, wrote Emancipation of Woman and A New Woman. He presented the idea that the ill treatment and low regard of women stemmed from the misinterpretation of the Quran and the misapplication of Islamic law. His words became like a manifesto for the feminist movement when he wrote, "If half the population leads a life of fear, ignorance, and slavery, how can we hope for any development for the nation as a whole?" For his point of view, he was harshly criticized, but he did not retract his words. Qasim Amin never denied his belief that the ignorance of women caused decay of Islamic society. The inspiration of Qasim Amin and the revolution of 1919 set the stage for Huda Sha'rawi, one of our foremost pioneers. Huda, an upper-class, privately tutored woman, actively involved herself in the nationalist movement. Huda Sha'rawi's courage and leadership were obvious. Her actions were remarkable and encouraged others to follow her. I remember my aunts to my father used to tell me stories and stories about Huda Sha'rawi, how brave this lady was, calling for more education, more schools for girls, more rights for women, and I was so impressed by her, especially about when I heard that she led a demonstration of 350 women in the streets of Cairo, demonstrating against the British occupation. And at that time in 1919, the women, the upper class, were all veiled, and veiled here we had this from the Ottoman Empire. They used to cover their face and just their eyes were shown. And to see women whom they were just at home, staying at home without doing anything, led by Huda Sha'rawi, demonstrating in the streets of Cairo, that was something which made me very impressed by Huda Sha'rawi. In 1923, Huda Sha'rawi again revolted, this time against the custom of being veiled. In 1923, Huda Sha'rawi went to attend a conference in Rome representing the Egyptian women and the Arab women. And when she went there and met men and women and sat and talked and discussed so many things, and she was putting this veil on her face, she found it very ridiculous. How can she, do all these activities with people, and she was the only one who looks odd between them with this covering face. She took it off, and when she came back to Egypt, the people who were waiting for her, they were, surprised and shocked by what she has done. But shortly thereafter, Ibtihaj Qaddoura became the first woman in Lebanon to remove her veil. You see, and Adila also, Al-Jazairi, did the same in Syria. Then Huda Sha'rawi had led the way. Also in 1923, Huda founded the Egyptian Feminist Union, the EFU. This organization developed into a force in educating women about their political and social rights. Although called a feminist union, the EFU was not exclusively female. It had the support of many males nationalists, some of whom served on its board of directors. 15 years later, with the help of her sisters in Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, Huda organized the first conference of Arab women. Meeting in Cairo, they elected her as president, and Adil al-Jazairi of Syria and Evelyn Jubran Butrus of Lebanon as two of her vice presidents. Another great woman also, Sizana Barawi, was also a visible and vocal participant in these early days of the feminist movement, and a friend and colleague of Huda Sha'rawi. I remember at the first month or days of the revolution in 1952, when I was still not even 20 years, I remember Sizana Barawi used to visit me and to encourage me to do something, and she was a very old woman at that time, but full of enthusiasm for women's rights, for women's education, that I was very happy to know her. Sizana Barawi, like her peers, was severely criticized as being un-Islamic in her beliefs. To her critics, she responded, "We, the Egyptian feminists, have a great respect for our religion, Islam. In wanting to see it practiced in its true spirit, we are doing more for it than those who submit themselves blindly to the customs that have defamed it." Unshaken in her principles, she continued her course, and in 1940s, Sizana Barawi founded the Youth Committee, a group organized to attract young women to the cause. She also engaged herself in the movement of the Friends of Peace, whose primary mission was to oppose the imperial presence of Britain in Egypt. There are two other great women also I wish to tell you about, who also possessed resonant voices and strong personalities in the feminist movement. One is Dr. Sahir al-Qalamawi. Dr. Sahir al-Qalamawi in 1928, she was one of the first women permitted to enter Cairo University. She continued her education, earned her doctorate, and she used to tell us stories about earning her doctorates, how the boys were throwing stones on the windows, that they had to remove her to another hall for her defense. And she earned her doctorate and became a renowned professor of Arabic literature. She was also elected a member of the parliament. As a member, Dr. Sahir al-Qalamawi organized workshops to educate and encourage women to become involved in politics. Her influence was far-reaching. I am naturally proud of this woman's accomplishments in the development of the role of women in Egypt, but I owe her a personal debt for her role in my development. She was my professor all the way when I was in the university. And when I graduated and thought of having my MA and PhD, I thought of Dr. Sahir Al-Qalamawi to be my supervisor because I admired her so much, and she was really a great, great lady whom I will always consider Dr. Sahir my mentor and my friend. The other pioneer social activist was Amina El-Said. Amina grew up at a time when the education of girls was not of much concern, especially in Upper Egypt. Her father, and especially in Upper Egypt, they were very conservative and they didn't allow their daughters to go to school, only the boys. Her father, obviously a progressive thinker, worried that his daughters could not receive adequate education in Asyut. Asyut is in Upper Egypt. Thus he moved his entire family to Cairo. Amina used her education to become one of our first female journalists, but she could not escape the bias of the times. So when she first began to publish her work, she used a man's name. Like her contemporaries, Amina was the target of ruthless ridicule. Regardless of the intense personal and professional criticism heaped upon her, she raised a courageous voice in the Parliament for freedom and for women's rights for decades. Amina Said was my friend. Last fall, her voice was silenced forever. But her message will never be forgotten. Amina Said, Dr. Sahir Al-Qalamawi, their influence will always be felt by me and by generations of Egyptian women now and in the future. I learned from them a lot. And as I said, Dr. Sahir Al-Qalamawi was my professor in the university, and she encouraged me a lot. And I was following her steps, and she was my guide always. And when my husband became a president, I found myself wanted to do something to emulate these great women who were our pioneers, whom I talked about. And I started, or I am behind the law which gave, the family law which gave many rights to the women at a time when, before this law, which they had it in 1979, before this law, when there was a divorce, women were, facing tragedies really, going to the court, back and forth. The children disappears with the father, no alimony, no custody for the children. There were no rights at all. But during Sadat's time, and when I was, surrounded with all the women who helped me, we started this law. Of course, the specialist people and the people for law who changed this, it gave the right for the custody for the children for the age of 13 for the boy and the age of 15 for the girl. It gave Aidan the alimony immediately instead of women back and forth. No, they can cut immediately after having the divorce. They can cut the alimony from the salary of the husband. Also, the husband can never remarry unless he tells his wife. He has to tell her. Before this law, he could remarry without telling, and there were many stories in the country about men marrying without their wives knowing. But in this law, he has to tell his wife. If she agreed to stay, I can't believe any woman could approve that her husband will marry another woman. If she agreed, well, it happens very rarely, but if not, which is something normal, then she has to take her rights in the alimony, and we have something called sadaq, when they marry, there is in the contract amount of money that they agree about. She will take it if they will divorce. Another thing with the shortage of the flats and housing in Egypt, as everywhere, the flat goes to the divorced wife. Not because of her, but because of the children whom we don't want them to be brought up after the marriage is, not working. We don't want the children to suffer, at least to stay in the same atmosphere with their mother. As you can discern, nationalism was an inseparable part of Egypt's feminist movement, supported by men and women, just as nationalism was ingrained in the early days of the movement, so too was the call for equal education. The rights of women and the right of women to be educated were interconnected and indivisible. It is impossible to discuss the education of women in Egypt without discussing the contributions of Nabawiya Musa. Nabawiya Musa's family, like that of Amin al-Said, moved to Cairo to provide for the education of their children. But unlike Amin al-Said's family, Nabawiya's parents moved for the education of their sons, not their daughters. While her brothers were being tutored, Nabawiya Musa listened and learned. With such resourcefulness, she particularly educated herself. It is no surprise that she later became a prominent educator. She advanced through the ranks from teacher to our first headmistress of a primary school for girls, to Egypt's inspector of girls' education. When she first began her teaching career, she soon discovered that her salary was less than that of her male counterparts. She questions the Ministry of Education about this practice, and she went herself and met the Minister of Education. And she was told that the men earned more money because they had earned secondary diplomas. But there were no secondary schools for girls at that time. Undaunted, she used the same determination and diligence that she had used as a young girl to prepare herself to take the examination for the diploma. On her own, she prepared and she passed. Now there could be no excuses. She received her raise. It was Nabawiya Musa who set the precedent of equal pay for equal work, a policy practiced today, and the credit goes to Nabawiya Musa. Nabawiya Musa's every action was a progressive step for the liberation of Egypt's women. In 1920, she wrote Woman in the Workforce. In this book, Nabawiya presented well-articulated arguments in support of the equality of men and women. Her arguments are still valid, 76 years later. Like her peers, she received severe criticism for her positions, but she, like them, would not be silenced or hidden away. With education as her sword and shield, she continued her crusade for the emancipation of women through education. Huda Sha'arawi, Sizana Barawi, Suhair al-Qalamawi, Nabawiya Musa, Amin al-Said, pioneers and pathfinders, women who molded and improved the lives of so many Egyptians. Egyptians, people like them, like themselves, who regard and respect the rights of each other as we work together to ensure the best of our country, for our country. They and their sisters in Lebanon, Palestine, and Syria gave breath to the feminist movement. Their seemingly simple acts of accomplishments gently shook our world. They were the role models whose stories not only influenced me as a child, but also shaped the course of my work as an adult. Today we speak of the empowerment of women as the means to ensure women's participation in all aspects of their lives. I contend that there can be no empowerment until there is education. This is the key to being equal participants and partners in society. But the word education does not simply infer college or university. A woman who learns a skill, thereby earning money for herself and for her family, has been educated, thus empowered. And tele society, such a very simple example for this.